Jennifer Hurwitz, and I'm your host. It's Doing Relationships Right. I'm so excited to be here. I'm here every Tuesday and every Friday, and I bring you fabulous guests, and this is no exception. I have Jackie Ulmer here with me today, and she is a network marketing sales coach. Am I correct? Is that the right title?
Yes, you are.
Oh my gosh, I got it. I was good. And I love what you do. I love your tagline. I've been stalking you a little bit today, Jackie. I'll be honest with you. And you have so much to bring to the table. You're a life and a money coach.
Yes, correct. Because let's face it, they go hand in hand.
They do go hand in hand. I agree. And I can't wait to have this conversation. I'm so excited. We have so much to talk about. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to discuss this conversation because I think it's one that must be had regularly.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of the big things that we don't talk about enough. I think that money and our relationship with money and, I think it had a lot to do with my divorce. I think it has a lot to do with a lot of people's struggles in their marriages and their relationships. So where do you want to start? Please tell us a little bit about you and how this all began for you and how you got into it. I would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a network marketing business sales coach, and I help people build a thriving social selling business without annoying family, friends, and strangers.
I love that.
And all of you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Because you've either been annoying or you've been annoyed. So it's one or the other. But yeah, it's interesting. So I have had a negative blueprint about money. I'm just going to kind of start there, which will bring us into my story. My story doesn't really matter till we get into some of the context of this. So we'll get into it. But at about age 10 or 11, I overheard a conversation that my parents were having. And for some reason, I made up in my mind that we were poor, like that we didn't have money. And no matter what proved itself differently in my life, which it did, I come from a very middle-class family. We didn't have a ton, but we didn't lack either. Like I've always had a roof over my head, all that kind of stuff. And so I look back and I think, wow, it's scary and interesting how programming from a really young age can really sidetrack you. And so I spent all of my life with a bad relationship with money. With the biggest feeling is that it's going to run out. So no matter how fast I make it, no matter how fast this, whatever, I need to really be careful because at some point it's going to run out. And there, it's always scary on the other side. And so, being someone who launched a network marketing business some 27 years ago, I was really captivated by the potential that network marketing had to offer. And I believed in it and I wanted it terribly. But I had to work really hard to release that struggle with money and to learn to allow it to come in, to welcome it to come in, and to accept the fact that it really is there for all of us. We just have to let go of those blocks and those limiting beliefs that hold it away from us. So that's the very first start of it.
I wonder whether it's so funny. I'm listening to you and I'm like, God, that was kind of me too. Where do you think is that something we pick up from listening to our parents talk? Do we overhear conversations when we're young and we get half the conversation, or where do you think that comes from originally? Because I feel the same way listening to you.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because my husband, I've been married 32 years, but my husband came from a much more affluent family, a country club family. And while he wasn't handed anything, he also grew up with much more of an abundance mindset around money. So I don't remember him being in scarcity. And I'll give you a quick example. So one of the first things that you're taught in network marketing is to attend events because that builds belief. You see something outside of the box of, the business in a box, as I like to call it. And especially, I started my network marketing career in 1994. So we didn't have a lot of what we have today in terms of Zoom calls, being able to see people face to face. You were solo until you went to events. And when the first event came up for our company in that first year, he was immediately of the mindset, well, we have to go. And my mindset was, we're not making enough to pay for it yet. And I remember saying that to him. And I remember him saying back to me, well, all of the people who are making it, who are making the kind of money, have the position that we want, all attend events. And they're all telling us that we should attend events, and success leaves clues. And that started doing, a shift for me. But that's when I really realized, wow, he has not gone through his life feeling like the shoe's going to drop and the money's going to go away or anything like that. So it's just an interesting thing. So he grew up with a different type of programming, if you will, from his family of origin. And my family of origin didn't intentionally set out to set me up for this negative belief. I overheard something that as a kid, without the whole story, in my little primitive 10-year-old brain, that's what I processed it as. I wasn't educated enough, or even I didn't have the skill set to even be able to ask questions. And certainly back then, you didn't ask your parents how
No, you
much they
didn't.
made.
I was
I
just going
still
to
to this
say,
day, I don't know how much my father ever made. Yeah, so just things like that. So I think that a lot of it is demographic wise. Um, but yeah, we get that negative programming, just those words that we hear. Money doesn't grow on trees. Oh, well, if I had a house that big, I'd just have to clean it. I mean, there's so many pieces that go to that.
right. It's interesting to me when I'm listening to this because I try to think back of when my first like real, was it my dad like losing a job, or was it my sister when she took my mom's credit card out of her purse or bought it? Was it me when I lost, like, I don't know what it is, but I am horrified. I have a horrible relationship with money. And I'm trying to think about like, when did it start? Like what? And then I think, what can I do differently with my own kids? But I think they're 18 and I probably already messed it up. So what do you think is there a place that what's the disconnect? I don't know, maybe this point is asking too much, but
Well, no, it's kind of funny, and you can't ever go back. My children now are 28 and 25, but I will tell you one thing that I vowed to never ever say to them, and that is, we can't afford it. I have never spoken those words to my children. We can't afford it. I've never said money doesn't grow on trees. Like, I made a very conscious decision with my children to share money in a way that made them understand that it's something, that will come to you, that you're worthy of, and all that. But I never spoke those kind of words. Now, that doesn't mean that I bought them anything that they wanted. In fact, I was the complete opposite. Like, I was an allowance type girl, and paying allowance and having certain expectations for that, and working hard as somebody building my own business. And my husband's an airline pilot, so it's not like we didn't lack for money, but we didn't just throw money at our children just because. I didn't buy them the next new trendy thing that was coming along. We taught them, even now, both of them have 401ks at 25 and 28. They've been investing for a long time. So we worked hard to raise them with that. But I will tell you, I just remember across the board, I was really, really intentional with words that I would never speak to them. So I don't know,
that's important.
hopefully that'll help someone out there with young children
Yes.
coming up, where we begin to work that messaging.
Right, because I'm actually listening to you, and I'm like, I want to say to my listeners, get out a pen, because I think that is really important. Because I can remember, like, we can't afford that, or going to Target and saying, like, guys, not today, whatever. Especially with the divorce. Like, when I got divorced, I remember thinking I was so scared, because my listeners who listen all the time know that, like, I have a great relationship with my husband, my ex-husband. We're great, but I'm lucky. I'm one of the lucky ones, right? So
Right.
I knew, but I was also horrified. I was a stay-at-home mom. 12 years. And I didn't even know how to balance a checkbook, because my ex, he was, in banking. So I did the
Right.
kids and he did the banking. And then all of a sudden I was like, what's the budget? Like, what do you mean I have to pay the bills myself? And what do you mean there's a gas bill? I mean, it went to like, and I remember being super independent before I got married. Like, I made more money than he did before we got married. I was a DJ. I had my own bills. I had my own car payment. Where was that girl? It was so crazy to me that, like, I didn't feel as though I could be strong like that person again. I don't know where that shift happened, but I was horrified. I mean, it is very scary to not know where that next paycheck or money or whatever is going to come from, right?
Right. That is scary. And the reality of it is, I do say this, and I'm sure you've done this. I mean, give yourself some grace and some self-compassion.
Yes.
And anybody listening, same thing. Yes. Any of us could end up in a situation like that at any time. Like, right. We don't know what waits around the corner, right? If we've learned anything in the last year, for sure,
oh my gosh, right.
We've learned that we don't know. And there's no such thing as security in terms of job security or any of that type thing. So, you have to be smart as you can. But I also think it's not uncommon to come into a relationship where we all have skill sets. And so you kind of pass on one skill set to one of you, and the other one takes on this. And, typically when you get married, there's that bond and that trust and that desire that this is going to be it for lifetime. And it doesn't always work out that way. So, it is scary. It is scary.
It was, but at the same time, I was lucky that he did, take care of me, thank God. And he still does, we're good friends. But I think to myself, oh my gosh, it is very interesting because still to this day, like I still make my budget like on one of these like legal notes, like stick it out and up. And I think, what am I doing? But like people use like spreadsheets, and I'm like, no, I have to see it. It's so interesting how everybody has such a different,
Yes.
and what's important to certain people isn't important to, it's just the whole relationship with money. And I used to use a business coach who said, you have a horrible relationship with money, Jen. I was like, what does that actually mean? What does that mean? Can you tell us?
Well, I think a lot of it's how we think about money. And these are all subconscious limiting beliefs that we have. It's the belief that, for me, just to be very transparent, which I'm going to tell you, I wasn't able to share this publicly until the last 2 years. And I've been 27 years in my own business. And that is, I never finished my college education. And especially given my demographic, like I held that over my head as a source of shame, imposter syndrome. I went on to make more money than I was in the top 0.5%, and especially of women earners. But I always had a bit of fraud and imposter syndrome. And there was always that part of me that thought, I'm not really sure I deserve this because I don't have this paper that has initials on it or, says, well, you put in this much time learning underwater basket weaving along with everything else.
I was just going to say.
So you're not really worthy of it, so just little things like that. So I really do think, and I had shared this before we started, but I have a little talk that I do called, if money could talk, what would it say about you? And in that, it's what are you saying about money? What is your relationship? If you were to sit down and have a conversation with money, what would that consist of? Where are you? Why don't you show up in my life? How come you like Susie Q better than you like me? So we think about that. If you were to put money out there as a person, what would that conversation be like? And then what would money say back? Well, I try to show up for you and you keep pushing me away. You tell me that you're not worthy of me in your life. That's basically telling me to go away. You tell me that you're not good enough for this. So it's really beginning to shift those limiting beliefs from that to saying, why am I not worthy? For anything that any of us have an imposter syndrome or a limiting belief around, if we look hard enough, and it doesn't even take very long, we can find somebody with a worse story than ours who's gone on to be highly successful and beat that limiting belief, beat that story. So we just have to begin to repattern our mind and our thinking and become an intentional thinker and learn to pivot when we think that thought and stop and become curious and say, where is this a story from my past that I'm projecting right now or projecting into the future?
Right. That's so interesting because I always think to myself too, like when people say, or this one's coaches or whatever they say to me, you have to invest in yourself. You have to invest in yourself. And I'm always like, I have been investing in myself for the last, I don't know what, for God's sakes, how much more can I invest in myself? Right. But like when your husband said you have to go to the, show up at the meetings or the, whatever they're called. Conventions and stuff. It's that chicken and the egg, right? So if I invest in myself, I should see a return on investment. But it's so hard to know when to stop investing in yourself and finally ask for something in return. And I think, is that a female? Is that a, not to be sexist, but is it because I don't ask? I have a hard time asking for my worth. Like, is it my worth? That we can go there too, but a lot of
I think those are great questions. And I think that's two parts of a conversation. Yes. So one part is, when do you quit investing in yourself? When I hear that, I often think of purchasing more coaching, purchasing another training program. Right. And my answer to that is, I think there's good debt and there's bad debt.
Okay.
Good debt is when you say, I'm investing in this, not just in my dollars, but in the action that I'm going to put forth in it. Because it's easy to throw money at a problem without really putting the mind and the energy and the action to saying, I believe enough in this program and I know the success stories. It's going to take more than just me putting the credit card down. Right. It's going to put me really putting things into play and taking action and showing up and making a decision and being committed and being consistent versus racking up debt hoping that that next bright, shiny object is going to be the solution. The solution is always within us. I think coaching is fabulous, and I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, quite frankly, in my own coaching. But I've always done so saying, I am going, because I'm so money oriented in terms of I do not want to waste any money. If I'm going to invest in it, I'm going to take action on it. Now, I'd like to tell you I've done that every single time I've spent money. No, I haven't. I have that story like anybody of programs on my computer that I've never even opened that I invested in, and that type thing. But I think it really is reaching a point to say no more. Like, I'm investing and going for this. So that's one part of the question. The other part is asking for what you're worth. And I think that's much more of a female problem, honestly. Yes. And I think that's a big part of the reason, honestly, why we still make, 80 cents on the dollar. I'm probably actually making it more than it is. But I think that part of it does fall on us. I'm not saying that there aren't other standards. I'm not shifting all the blame to women by any stretch of the imagination. But there have been so many studies done of when, how much women ask for, when they're asked what their salary range is, they may have a range and they almost always ask for the lowest amount. Right. They're always afraid if they ask for too much, they're going to lose the job instead of a counter offer, whereas men are like much more likely to put it out there, what they think they're worth.
I always feel guilty. It's even when I'm taking on clients in my own coaching practice, I'm like, I always undercut myself. And my boyfriend and my ex, they're like, what are you doing, Jen? You're not even in the market. I'm like, I just feel like they won't hire me if I don't, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm like, or I feel bad, or I know their situation. So I'm like, I just can't charge that, and then I think to myself, there'll be someone who will pay for my, you know what I'm saying? So it's really difficult. I find myself in a real, people are like, you're just so sensitive, Jen. I'm like, no, I don't want to, I don't know what it is. It's just really hard. The SoberLink system is designed to make parenting time safer with real-time remote alcohol monitoring. SoberLink uniquely combines a breathalyzer with wireless connectivity and is the only system that includes facial recognition, tamper detection, and advanced reporting. Parents can submit a test anytime, anywhere, thanks to SoberLink's wireless technology, which delivers test results by text message or email to the concerned parties. Simplify co-parenting arrangements by using the system that provides transparency and proof of sobriety throughout the day. Flexible schedules combined with real-time delivery of results make SoberLink the experts in remote alcohol monitoring technology. It's my pleasure to offer my listeners $50 off your device. Just email info@soberlink.com and mention Doing Divorce Right. But hurry, it's for a limited time only. Soberlink.com.
It is difficult. And I think, two parts to that too. One is, and especially with coaching, because I am a coach, I know there's a tendency to want to place a dollar amount on an hourly rate. But the reality of it is people are paying for your expertise, your knowledge, your wisdom, and your ability to create the transformation. They're not paying you for the amount of hours spent in something. So, that's a big part of number one. And, the other part is without skin in the game, most of us don't do anything. So I think we're short selling our potential client and our belief in them and their ability to step up and say, I'm going to put the skin in the game financially, which is going to force me to put the skin in the game in action.
Which is probably why when I give a 30-minute free consult call, and I give out all of my advice in that 30 minutes, I don't get the clients like, okay, great. I'm great. Thank you so much, Jen. I'm so glad you helped me today. I'm like,
what? Wait.
You know what I'm saying?
Where's your credit card number? No.
Exactly. I was saying, but it's so funny because you're so right. If they don't, oh my God, that is so, see, look at this, everybody. This is perfect for me today. But you're so right. That's absolutely right. Because if they don't put any skin, if they're not paying for anything or that they don't feel like they're spending, like for me, when I go, coaches need coaches, right? So when I go to my coach and she's charging me X amount of dollars, I'm like, oh my God, I paid, $350 an hour. I'm going to that. I'm not going to miss her. And I'm going to do what she says because, right? Yeah.
You're going to show up.
I'm going to show up.
It's like having an accountability partner at the gym, really and truly, or hiring a personal trainer.
Right.
Not everybody does that, but for me, it's like if I commit to somebody in time, especially if I'm going to block time for them, even an accountability partner who isn't paying, I'm not paying for, but they're investing with their time. I'm going to show up and work harder for them in most cases than I do for myself.
Right.
So, it's an interesting piece of the equation.
Absolutely. Oh, this is also interesting to me because it's just, I really do feel like it has so much to do with relationships. And they say that, when you're married, that there's those four pillars, like four legs of a chair. And if one of them isn't stable, that the whole relationship, and I feel like finances are such a, like one of those wobbly little legs, if you can't, it's tough.
It's true. Very often the fight over the laundry that gets left in the middle of the floor is really a fight about money.
Yes.
Because when everything else is good, I mean, that may irritate you a little, but it's not going to be enough to, build a knockdown,
Right.
drag out fight. Or you're going to be more inclined to say, hey, you know what? Could you do me a favor and just pick up your laundry? Instead, it's like the money piece of it just closes in on us, and it becomes the catalyst for all of the anger and all of the arguing and the rest of it.
And the resentment and the buildup and the,
Right.
and the secrets. And I feel like there's so much like, one person doesn't want to share the other thing and then they're hiding it and then they think they're doing the right. It's just it's just really hard.
It is.
It's hard enough. Can I ask you, do you believe in having joint, or do you have a say in that, or how do you feel about?
We have shared our money forever.
Yes.
We always have. And I don't know. I mean, again, I've been married 32 years. So it's been a while. And it was kind of funny. That was one of the first things. We had friends before we got married, and they were married and they had separate. And we would go to football games. We lived in Tennessee at the time, and we had Vanderbilt in Alabama, and we would, go to football games and pay for brunch. And they were always like splitting up. Well, who bought the tickets and who did that? It was really uncomfortable, which wasn't necessarily the right way to handle it for them. But that was one of the first things my husband said to me before we even got married. He was like, how do you feel about us just like sharing our money? And he made much more than I did. So I was like, yeah, that's great. But I've always been a saver too. So it was like when we got married and I showed him how much I had in saving, he was like, wow, you're kidding. I'm like, no, I didn't even know it was money scarcity at the time, but I've always been save for a rainy day kind of person. So, we've always shared our money, still do to this day. I mean, I certainly have a business account, but he's on all of those.
Yeah, it's funny. After coaching now with dating after divorce it's so different because, it's just a whole different conversation. But I have so many clients that say to me, well, what do you think, joint or not? And then what do you think about, should I have the conversation about money? What date in? And I'm like, not the first day, please. But, people want to know. They actually are like asking if they should talk about credit and on a date. And I'm like, oh my God, it is so different now than it was when I was married, 7 years ago even.
It is, but it's so important, and I think especially for us as women, educating our daughters or mentoring other younger women or whatever coming up, it's like, at least be educated, understand money, understand investing, make sure that in a relationship where stuff is shared, understand where everything is. Don't let yourself be blindsided where that story of like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden everything was gone, I know, and that's one thing I work on with my daughter, who I think might be getting married next year, and she's in a very committed relationship. And it's kind of funny. They spent New Year's Eve like planning goals and talking about their finances and what their goals were like for the next 6 months, even but I mean, there's not even a ring on her finger yet, but it's looking that way.
So good.
That's what I thought too. It's like, I was never, I can tell you, my mom nor my dad ever said, make sure you guys have a communication about money. But my mom, again, like, I think my mom had no clue.
No, my mom either.
Really?
I think that every engaged couple, I have 2 books that every engaged couple should read. But I had someone on my podcast yesterday, and he wrote a book called Not a Partnership. It is for every engaged couple. It is the best. It literally teaches them how to be married.
Oh, I love that.
I'm fantastic. I'm going to get it for every person that comes into walks into my house that's like thinking about getting married is going to read this book. And then of course my book, but besides that, I'm like, seriously, it is so good. And it talks about all of these things because I never learned. I just thought, I'll get married and it'll work and it'll be fine and things will be great. But I wasn't set up for anything like your daughter's having conversations about. Like I didn't get it. I don't know. I think if I would have had a conversation like that with my husband and we really talked about things that were, I met him and I think 10 months later we were engaged and 6 months later we were married and then we had a kid 6 months later. It was like, I barely even knew the guy,
Right.
you know?
Well,
So I think those are,
conversations are different. I mean, when you think about the things that didn't exist when we were going through that, like social media,
right.
podcasts,
Oh,
there's, I love time. I can't believe how many young people from, I'm talking like 19 on up, who religiously listen to podcasts. Now, what exactly they're listening to, I don't know, but I do know just from podcasts in general, they're having other ones thrown in front of them. Hey, you might want to listen to this.
right.
Whereas hopefully they're beginning to get educated in ways. I mean, we had the radio,
I know.
and
I feel like we
ultimately,
literally,
if you invested in cassettes and
right.
then
8 tracks.
DVDs and CDs, right? I mean,
I'm
all
really
that
giving
type
my
of stuff.
age. I listened
Right.
to Xanadu. That was like my thing.
Right. Yeah, so it was just a different time, and so that, there's plenty of negative about social media and all of that for the younger generation, but there's also good things
I agree.
where you're going to be exposed, if you will, to a lot of information that could help you, and hopefully as parents, we are the parents of the entitled generation too.
Oh,
But that's another conversation, but
yes.
hopefully we're also moving them down that path to say, I mean, it's kind of funny talking about my daughter. 2 years ago, almost to the date that we're recording this, she went through a major breakup, and she not only broke up, she had moved across the country, which was a good thing.
Okay.
That's where she really needed and wanted to be, and I'll forever be grateful that he ultimately ended up getting her there. But so she had to move, and she had to find a job. And I remember saying to her, and she remembers this too, and I said, you know what? Here's the thing you need to do. You need to go get a good job, and you need to start saving some money, because money doesn't buy happiness, but it does buy choices. And
Oh, I
right
love
now,
that.
you have no choices because you have put all your eggs in his basket, so to speak.
Yeah.
You've been playing house, and those were her words,
How old was she?
23.
Oh, she's a baby. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
But
goodness.
boy, she did. Like, she realized that I just said, you need to do this, this, and this. You need to and make sure that this amount goes into a savings account. You don't touch it. You don't spend it. You need to build up a nest egg so that if and when anything like this happens, and life is going to deal you challenges for all of
Absolutely.
us. It doesn't, I mean, nobody gets out of this life unscathed in terms of that kind of stuff.
Right.
There's always something that comes along. And so money doesn't buy happiness, but it does buy choices.
I love
And
that. Money
choices can
does
help
not
buy
buy
happiness.
you happiness, but it buys you choices. I love
Yeah.
that's going to be the tagline. I love it. That is
Yeah.
awesome, right? I mean,
Yes.
you're so right. It does buy you choices. And I love how you told her to, get a job and then to start saving. No one ever told me to start saving. I think that was problem number one. My dad never said start saving. I had a job all through college. All through high school, and like I babysat every Saturday night, but it was always to pay for something else.
Interesting. See,
Like,
I opened my first savings account like at age 11. It was
oh yeah,
probably
see,
after that
my kids
conversation I
too.
heard my parents having.
Yeah, that's so funny. My kids too. My kids both have saving accounts, and
Yeah.
that's like something that we did. But I remember like I wanted to go to summer camp, so I saved up. My parents they couldn't afford summer camp for us because it was they have 4 kids, and if I wanted to go, they're like you have to pay for it. So I would work to pay for something, and then it was
Well,
gone.
that's good. I mean, that's building a strong work ethic, though.
Yes,
That's teaching you that you can have what you want if you're willing to work for it.
good.
And that's
Okay,
a good money
okay,
lesson.
good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I feel like I don't know why where I went wrong, but yeah, it's like, and here, I think it's one of those things that like, it's a scarcity. Like I'm always worried I'm not going to have, but I do. And then there's the problem with the online shopping for me is a real issue. Like that whole like immediate gratification where you just push that button. It's like, oh wow, it shows up on your front porch.
Yeah, I know, right? Especially in
Oh,
the last year with
oh my
Amazon,
God.
it's like, oh, I need that. I want that. And then pretty soon it's like, these weren't just the things I needed. Now all of a sudden I have all this, every day I'm like, where's my best friend? Amazon, have you forgotten me?
The guy in brown. He's down the street. He loves me. I'm like, if you could just leave that down there so my kids don't make fun of me anymore. I'm like, I'll meet you at the end of the street. I haven't left my house in a year because I'm so horrible. I have an autoimmune disease, so I can't go anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So really, I have this guy's at my house every day. I feel bad for him, but oh my gosh, this has just been such a great conversation. And so can you leave us with any little like nugget or, you've given us so much. I don't even know what else what you could possibly do, but
The
anything.
biggest thing I would say is kind of going back to if money could talk, what would money say about you? Sit down and write out, what is your relationship with money? How do you feel about money? How do you speak about money? How do you feel about your relationship with being able to create money in your life? And then do the reverse. Put money on the other side as if money were a person talking to you. What would money say back to you about how it feels about coming into your life? Does it feel welcomed? Does it, certainly it's desired and hoped for, but does it really feel welcome? Does it feel like you're truly inviting it in, besides just hoping for it? But are you still keeping that door closed on it? So just have some conversations with yourself, become aware of those thoughts, and pay attention to how to shift those and say, wait, this is a story from the past. I'm worthy. I'm enough. I'm worthy. If anyone is worthy, I'm worthy. I'm worthy just based on the fact that I was born into this world. So I would say that more than anything. Just pay attention to the words you speak, the things you think about it, and shift those.
That's awesome. And I love what you said about not saying certain things to your kids.
Yes.
That was
Never,
really
even to yourself, never say, I can't afford that. Say, it's not in my budget today, but I'm putting it, or don't even say but. I don't like that. It negates everything else.
Okay.
And I'm putting this on my work for list.
Work
and
for
what
list.
is it? What are the steps that I'm going to take to work for that?
I find myself getting angry when I have to spend money on things that I don't really want to spend it on.
Like taxes, car repair.
Like my medical insurance, for example, it wasn't great last year, and it didn't cover the medication that I needed. And I was so angry. Like I still am paying like $5,000 worth of bills for something I shouldn't be paying for. Like it's not and I'm like, I am just so angry that I have to waste that kind of money, but on something I shouldn't be paying for. So I know that I should think to myself, like, okay, it's life. It happened. It's over. There's nothing you can do.
Right.
But
It happened. I can't change it. That's kind of part of it. I have to accept it. Accepting it isn't condoning it. Accepting it is just saying that I can argue with reality. It's Byron Katie. I can argue with reality all day long and I will lose 100% of the time.
Yep.
That anger is a wasted emotion. It's wasted energy, and it's energy that you could be putting into something more positive, like attracting that next coaching client that pays that off easily and effortlessly and elegantly, and then you can erase it from your mind.
I needed this today. Because
Me too.
I really do.
It reinforces it with me just speaking it.
Oh, that's great. Because yesterday I got this bill and I'm like so angry. And then I'm like, you're right. Like there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. Well, there is. I cannot pay it and go to court. I mean, like it would end up,
Even that's wasted energy, because then you're waiting for the court case to show up, to be served. There's just so many pieces of it. And money's just an energy. So I think another thing is to shift that from thinking that money is gone from me forever. It's just an ebb and a flow. It's just an energy. So it comes in, it goes out. And ideally, just like a river or the air that we breathe, whatever, we want to create that consistent flow that's coming in and going out and coming in and going out. And it's kind of like clearing clutter out of your house. You clear the clutter out to make room for more and better. That's clutter in a way that you're passing on, that's feeding another family. Look at it that way, if nothing else. The bill that I'm paying is also going to support someone else to put food on the table, a roof over their head. And I'm leaving space for new money to come in, new energy, and feeling an abundance around all of it.
I love that, because I really needed this today. That makes me feel so much better, because you're right. It's just, I just have to get over it, and you're absolutely right. Oh, Jackie, thank you so much. And where can everybody find you? I know your website is amazing. I stalked you today. It was fabulous. So it's streetsmartwealth.com.
Yes.
It'll be in the show notes.
Street Smart, and wealth like money. Streetsmartwealth.com. That shares with you a little bit of what I do, how I help people. And please reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I'm at Jackie Ulmer everywhere. Send me a direct message if you have specific questions. And I would even love, I can share some of the questions that I asked about, the little tool to have that conversation with money. I'm happy to share some of that too.
Oh, that would be great. And you know what? Your YouTube.
Yes, my YouTube channel. I'm Jackie L. Ulmer on YouTube for whatever reason.
Okay, and your YouTube is off. I mean, it is amazing. There's so much amazing information. Your YouTube is, if you guys want to see this YouTube channel, it's amazing.
I appreciate that.
It's a lot of hard work on that. It looks really good. It's
I
awesome.
appreciate it. It's
Oh,
fun.
Jackie, I'm so glad you're here today. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you
you.
so much for having me. I look forward to doing this again and sharing
Yes,
more and staying connected.
I would love that. Come back anytime, please.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Okay, guys. And me, you know where to find me. It's easy. JenniferHurwitz.com or Instagram. Are you on Clubhouse, Jackie?
I am. I'm
gosh,
obsessed.
you have to
Again,
find me. I
at
can't
Jackie
stop.
Ulmer. Yes, we'll connect.
Okay, definitely. And have you done a room yet? Have you?
Oh, many.
Oh my gosh, I haven't been in your rooms yet. I don't know why. Okay, I've got to.
Probably because we're not connected, but
That's right.
I'll connect with you as soon as we're done.
After this, so everybody find us on Clubhouse and come into our rooms and hang out with us. I'm obsessed as well. Like it's a problem, I think, for me.
Yeah, look
But
for us
that's
because
okay.
we're probably going to co-moderate a room together about money.
I would love it. I would love it. Yay, I'm so happy. Thanks, Jackie. Yay. Okay, everybody. Do something fabulous today. Go talk positively about money with your kids and save some money. Put some money aside and have a happy relationship with money. I'm going to do the same. Everybody, thanks for being here today. I'm Jennifer Hurwitz. This is Doing Relationships Right. Have a wonderful day. And as usual, peace, love, and so much truth. Bye, guys.